Ladies, let's be real for a second. When a good man comes into your life, he's not looking for perfection, but he is looking for peace. He's looking for a connection that makes sense, a love that flows, and a woman who is willing to grow with him, not push him away. But the truth is, there are certain behaviors, whether intentional or not, that can scare a good man away. And if you don't recognize them, you might lose someone who was truly meant for you. A good man is looking for a relationship that brings him peace, not one that constantly drains his energy. When negativity becomes a pattern, it creates an environment that feels heavy, stressful, and emotionally exhausting. Everyone has bad days, and occasional venting is normal. But if every conversation is filled with complaints, criticism, or a focus on what's going wrong, it starts to wear on him. A man who is trying to build a future with you wants to feel like his presence adds joy to your life, not like he's constantly walking into a storm of negativity. Negativity doesn't always come in the form of direct complaints. It can be a pessimistic attitude about life, constantly expecting the worst, or never acknowledging the good. If he surprises you with something thoughtful and your first response is to point out what's wrong with it instead of appreciating the effort, it discourages him. If he shares his dreams and ambitions and the response is skepticism or doubt rather than encouragement, it makes him feel unsupported. Over time, he will start to associate the relationship with feelings of frustration rather than fulfillment. A good man understands that life has challenges, and he will be there to support you through tough times. But when negativity becomes the default response to everything, it shifts the energy of the relationship. No one wants to feel like no matter what they do, it's never enough to bring happiness. If he feels like every conversation turns into an argument, every situation is met with resistance, or every attempt at joy is overshadowed by complaints, he will start to pull away. Not because he doesn't care, but because he realizes that his presence is not making a difference in your happiness. Negativity can also manifest through constant comparisons, whether it's comparing your relationship to others or focusing on the flaws rather than the strengths. If he's always hearing about how someone else's man does things better, how your life isn't where it should be, or how nothing ever goes right, it creates an unspoken pressure that drains the relationship. A good man wants to feel like he is enough, like his efforts matter, and like the relationship is a source of joy rather than stress. Even in difficult times, a positive mindset can make a difference. A relationship should feel like a partnership where both people uplift each other, not a space where negativity dominates every conversation. If a man feels like he's constantly trying to fix an emotional environment that never improves, he will eventually give up. He doesn't expect perfection, but he does need to feel like the relationship is worth the effort. When negativity takes over, it makes love feel like a burden rather than a blessing, and no good man will stay in a situation that drains him more than it fulfills him. A good man doesn't need constant praise, but he does need to feel that his efforts are acknowledged and appreciated. When a man puts in the time, energy, and thought to do something for the woman he cares about, it's not just about the action itself, it's about what it represents. It shows that he is invested, that he is considering her needs, and that he wants to contribute to her happiness. But when his efforts are dismissed, criticized, or treated as if they don't matter, it slowly chips away at his motivation to keep trying. Disrespecting his efforts can come in many forms. It can be as subtle as failing to acknowledge something he did for you, or as direct as belittling his actions and making him feel like they were pointless. If he goes out of his way to plan a date, surprises you with a thoughtful gift, or simply makes an effort to be there for you emotionally, and the response is indifference or dissatisfaction, it sends the message that his efforts are wasted. A man may try to brush it off at first, but over time, he will start to feel unappreciated. Another way this behavior appears is through unrealistic expectations. If a man is constantly made to feel like what he does is never enough, he will eventually stop trying. If he takes you to a nice dinner and the first thing you say is that another restaurant would have been better, if he buys you a gift and you immediately point out what you don't like about it, or if he goes out of his way to help you with something and you act like it was his obligation rather than a choice, he will begin to feel like there is no winning. A good man thrives in an environment where his efforts are valued, not where he feels like he is constantly failing to meet impossible standards. Men may not always express it directly, but they take note of how their efforts are received. If a man feels like he's in a relationship where nothing he does is good enough, he will start to pull away emotionally. He may stop doing the little things he used to do because he feels like they go unnoticed. He may become distant because he no longer sees the point in trying. Eventually, he may leave, not because he didn't care, but because he got tired of feeling like his best wasn't enough. Respecting a man's efforts doesn't mean settling for less than you deserve it. It means acknowledging what he does and showing appreciation for his intentions. A good man doesn't just want to provide, protect, and support, but wants to feel like those things are recognized and valued. When his efforts are met with appreciation, he is inspired to do more, to love deeper, and to continue building with you. But when they are constantly disregarded, he will start to feel like his presence in your life doesn't truly matter. A good man values honesty and growth in a relationship. He understands that no one is perfect, and he isn't expecting a woman to be without flaws. What he does expect, however, is accountability. When a woman refuses to take responsibility for her actions, always shifts the blame onto him, or avoids addressing her own shortcomings, it creates a toxic dynamic that makes him feel unheard, disrespected, and unappreciated. Over time, this behavior can push even the most patient and loving man away. Lack of accountability can show up in different ways. It might be denying responsibility when a mistake is made, making excuses instead of owning up to an issue, or turning the conversation around to make the man feel like he is the problem. If every disagreement ends with him being at fault, even when a situation clearly involves both people, he will start to feel frustrated and unvalued. No one wants to be in a relationship where they are always made to feel like the bad guy, especially when they are putting in effort to communicate and work through issues. Another way this manifests is through defensiveness. When a man expresses his feelings or concerns, and instead of listening, the response is to immediately deflect, deny, or turn the blame back on him, it makes it difficult to have a healthy dialogue. A good man doesn't expect perfection, but he does expect a willingness to grow. If he feels like every time he tries to communicate, it turns into a battle where his feelings are dismissed or minimized, he will eventually stop expressing himself altogether. A relationship cannot thrive if one person is always held accountable while the other refuses to take any responsibility. A lack of accountability also creates emotional distance. When a man sees that his partner is unwilling to own her mistakes, he starts to feel like his feelings don't matter. He may start to withdraw, not because he doesn't care, but because he sees that his words and emotions are not being taken seriously. Over time, this emotional detachment can lead to resentment. A man who once tried to work through issues will begin to shut down. And when a man shuts down emotionally, the relationship is already on its way to falling apart. Growth and accountability go hand in hand. A good man wants a partner who is willing to reflect on her actions, acknowledge when she is wrong, and make an effort to improve. Relationships require two people who are committed to learning from their mistakes and becoming better together. When accountability is missing, conflicts remain unresolved, misunderstandings turn into repeated patterns, and the relationship becomes more about proving a point rather than building a connection. A man who values peace, respect, and emotional maturity will not stay in an environment where accountability is always one-sided. No matter how much he may care, he will eventually walk away from a relationship that makes him feel unheard, unappreciated, and emotionally drained. A good man is not looking for someone who plays games with his emotions. He values honesty, transparency, and a genuine connection. When a woman engages in unnecessary mind games, whether it's playing hard to get, testing him to see how much he cares, or creating drama just to keep things interesting, it creates frustration and uncertainty. A man who is serious about love doesn't want to waste time trying to figure out if someone truly wants to be with him. If he feels like he constantly has to guess where he stands, he will eventually walk away. Playing games can take many forms. It might be purposely delaying responses to texts to make him chase, acting uninterested even when there are real feelings, or constantly testing his patience just to see how much he's willing to put up with. Some women believe that making a man work extra hard for their attention will increase his desire. But the truth is, a good man is not interested in proving himself to someone who is intentionally making things difficult. He is looking for a real connection, not a challenge for validation. Another common game is creating jealousy to get a reaction. This could be flirting with other men, talking about how many options are available, or purposely making him feel like he is in competition for your affection. A mature man is not going to compete for attention. He is willing to put in effort, but he will not stay in a situation where he constantly has to prove his worth. If he feels like he is being manipulated or used as a pawn in a power game, he will lose interest and move on. Some women also play emotional games by sending mixed signals. One moment, they act affectionate and interested, and the next, they pull away and become distant without explanation. This kind of hot and cold behavior confuses a man who is genuinely trying to build something real. A good man appreciates clarity. He wants to know where he stands. If he feels like he is being strung along or given attention only when it's convenient, he will eventually decide that the relationship is not worth the emotional exhaustion. Drama is another way that games appear in relationships. Some women create unnecessary conflict as a way to test how much a man cares or to see if he will fight to stay. They might start arguments over small things, bring up past issues just to get a reaction, or create problems where there are none. A man who values peace will not tolerate constant drama. He wants a woman who communicates openly rather than one who manufactures conflict to keep the relationship intense. A good man is not afraid of putting in effort, but he will not waste time on someone who keeps him in a cycle of confusion. He wants a woman who is secure in herself, who expresses her feelings honestly, and who is willing to build something real without resorting to games. When he sees that a woman is more focused on control than connection, he will recognize that the relationship is not for him. A good man understands that everyone has a past, and he doesn't expect a woman to be free of emotional wounds. He knows that life brings challenges, heartbreak, and difficult experiences that can shape the way someone sees love and relationships. However, when unhealed trauma turns into toxic behavior, it begins to create walls that make it impossible for a real connection to grow. A man who is ready for a healthy, loving relationship will try to be patient and understanding, but if he constantly feels like he is being punished for things he didn't do, he will eventually walk away. Unhealed trauma often shows up as deep-rooted trust issues. If a woman has been hurt in the past, she may struggle to believe that a good man can truly be genuine. She may question his intentions, accuse him of things without proof, or assume that every mistake he makes is a sign that he is just like the men who hurt her before. A man who is trying to love her will feel like no matter how much he proves himself, it will never be enough to ease her fears. Trust takes time to build, but when someone refuses to trust at all, the relationship becomes exhausting and emotionally draining. Another way that trauma manifests is through emotional walls. A woman who has been hurt may feel the need to protect herself by keeping a distance, avoiding vulnerability, and shutting down when things get too close. She might withhold affection, refuse to communicate openly, or push a man away just to see if he will fight to stay. While a good man may initially try to break down those walls, he will eventually realize that no matter how much he gives, she will not let him in. A relationship cannot grow when one person is always on the outside, trying to prove they are safe to love. Trauma can also create cycles of self-sabotage. If a woman is used to toxic relationships, she may unconsciously create chaos in a healthy relationship because it feels unfamiliar. She might start unnecessary arguments, test his patience, or assume the worst even when there is no real issue. A man who is emotionally mature will try to reassure her. But if he constantly feels like he is being pulled into negativity, he will begin to feel like the relationship is not worth the stress. A good man is not responsible for fixing someone's past pain. He can support, encourage, and be patient, but healing is a personal journey. If a woman refuses to acknowledge her wounds, refuses to do the inner work, and continues to bring the baggage of past relationships into the present, it will push him away. He will not allow himself to be in a situation where he is constantly walking on eggshells, trying to prove he is different while being treated as if he is the enemy. A relationship should be a partnership, not a battlefield where one person is constantly fighting to be seen and trusted. A good man does not want to control a woman, but he does want to feel like his role as a man is valued and respected. When a woman constantly challenges his ability to lead, dismisses his input, or makes him feel like his voice doesn't matter, it creates tension in the relationship. A strong and confident man is not looking for someone who blindly follows him, but he does want a woman who trusts his judgment, respects his perspective, and allows him to contribute to the relationship in a meaningful way. A man's natural instinct is to provide, protect, and lead in a way that benefits both partners. When he makes decisions, offers solutions, or takes initiative, he does it with the intention of creating stability and security. If he is constantly met with resistance, criticism, or a lack of appreciation, he will begin to feel like his presence in the relationship is unnecessary. No man wants to feel like he is in constant competition with the woman he is trying to build with. If he feels like his role is being diminished or that his efforts are being ignored, he will eventually withdraw. Some women struggle with allowing a man to lead because of past experiences where they felt let down, controlled, or manipulated. While it's understandable to want to maintain independence, there is a difference between being independent and being dismissive. A relationship thrives on balance. And when a man feels like his presence is not needed, he will start to emotionally check out. If he offers to help, support, or take charge in certain situations, and it's always rejected or downplayed, he will stop trying. Another way this behavior shows up is through constant decision-making battles. If a woman refuses to compromise, always insists on having things her way, or disregards his opinions, he will feel like his role in the relationship is insignificant. A man who values himself will not stay in a dynamic where he feels powerless or undervalued. He wants a partner who respects his leadership, not someone who constantly questions his ability to contribute. Respecting a man's leadership doesn't mean giving up personal power. It means recognizing that a healthy relationship requires trust and cooperation. A good man wants to feel like his guidance, wisdom, and efforts are acknowledged. If he is constantly met with resistance, if every decision turns into a debate, or if he feels like his input is never considered, he will begin to question his place in the relationship. A man who is confident and secure in himself will not fight for a position where he is not respected. A relationship should feel like a partnership where both people bring value to the table. A good man wants a woman who trusts his ability to lead in certain areas while also standing strong in her own independence. When he feels like his leadership is welcomed and appreciated, he will naturally step up even more. But when he feels like his presence is unnecessary or unwanted, he will eventually decide that his energy is better spent elsewhere. At the end of the day, a good man isn't expecting you to be perfect, but he is expecting you to be aware, to be intentional, to be open to growth. Because the truth is, when the right man comes into your life, you don't have to chase him, but you do have to make sure you're not pushing him away. So take a moment to reflect. If you've seen a good man walk away in the past, ask yourself, was it really because he wasn't ready? Or was it because these behaviors made him feel like no matter what he did, it would never be enough? The right man will love you, but he won't fight for a place in your life if you keep making him feel unwanted. So let's break these habits, let's heal, and let's make room for real love. Because when a good man finds a good woman, magic happens, but only if she's ready to receive it. A good man values peace, respect, and genuine love, so certain behaviors can quickly push him away. Constant criticism makes him feel unappreciated no matter how much he tries. Playing mind games or being inconsistent creates confusion instead of trust. A lack of respect for his time, efforts, or boundaries slowly wears him down. Clinging too tightly or showing extreme jealousy signals insecurity that suffocates the relationship. Dishonesty, whether big or small, destroys the foundation he wants to build. And negativity, when it overshadows joy, makes him feel drained instead of inspired to stay close.